Okay. Thank you, Alyssa, for joining us with the educator interview. So if you could just introduce yourself and where you work and what grade.
Okay, my name is Alyssa Walton, and I work at Grant TK through 8. It's in Mission Hills of San Diego. And I am currently an education specialist, which is a mild, moderate special education teacher. And I work mainly with middle school, although I'm known throughout my school because I also hold my administrative credential. And so I sub in for the principal when she's out or the vice principal when they're out. And they've both been out because they've had COVID. So I've been it.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. We'll get started with our questions. So the first question is, how do you evaluate a student's pre-existing knowledge?
Okay, so getting to know students is seeing how they perform in the classroom. So when we have a new student or a beginning of the school year, I spend a lot of time just watching them do their work, seeing what their responses are to different tasks. As a special educator, I also do assessments, both formal and informal, to find out specifically strengths and weaknesses of a child so that we can help them and start instructing them right where their ability level is, or make accommodations or modifications that can meet those needs.
Okay. And then what kind of assessments do you use throughout the year? And what kind of feedback do you give to the students and then also to the families with those assessments?
Okay, so we give a lot of informal assessments that we utilize for report card purposes, those types of things. We use a FAST assessment, which is used for literacy, and it's a computer-based program where students are reading and responding, and it gives us a grade level performance. In our lower grades, we used to use what's called the DRA, but now we're using what's called Fontes and Pinnell. And we're finding reading levels of each specific child so we can work right at their instructional level. As far as my special ed assessments, I use various informal type of assessments such as core phonics, Brigance math, and different curriculum-based assessments from the classroom. I also use what's called the Woodcock-Johnson. It's a standardized test of achievement, and I give that to my special ed students to find out grade level, age level that they are in each subject area.
Okay, great. And then, so with those assessments and pre-existing knowledge, how do you use that for their lessons?
Okay, and I should mention we always do state testing too, but state testing is a little different to me. I think it's a great gauge, but for some students, it's such a lengthy test that it doesn't give as good of a picture as if you were getting small snippets from them.
Sure.
So anyways, how do we use that? So we're teaching to the standards, and we are utilizing those test scores to find out what standards are weaknesses, what areas we need growth in. But we do, I mean, each grade level has their own set of standards that we're trying to meet. Now in special ed, a lot of times our students are, well, I shouldn't say a lot of times, our students are significantly below grade level. Even with a mild disability, a student is typically 2 years below grade level in most areas. Not always though. Sometimes they have a strength in math and they're at grade level, and then otherwise in literacy, they have a weakness where they're a little lower. But we're, as teachers and administrators, we're constantly meeting, evaluating, looking at data, finding out what standards we need to spend more time with, what standards we can, just touch quickly to review. But we hit all standards for the grade levels.
Okay. And then what type of strategies do you use to connect lessons to real life?
A lot of times it's picking the curriculum. So for instance, in literacy, and literacy is one of my favorite areas, and it's easy to meet student needs. We try to pick books articles and things that are of high interest. So if it's a book, we try to pick books that meet the needs of all of our students, which can be difficult. For instance, though, sixth graders, we have reading right now, Lightning Thief by Percy Jackson. They love that. It hits both the boys with the mythology and the girls like it because it's a nice story too. So doing things like that. Also, we try to hit the diversity of our students. So our students are so diverse. So some of our literature has to do with Black youth. Some of it has to do with, we've had Vietnamese refugee stories. So we're trying to hit the diversity and meet needs that way, but plus with high interest books.
Okay. What methods do you use to create a classroom community?
Our school has an advisory period in middle school, and in elementary, we have lessons too. And in this advisory, or in just the elementary class, we've spent a lot of time training with restorative justice practices. So, and also social emotional learning instruction. And in our advisory for middle school, we actually have a period, which it's a shortened period. It's 30 minutes a day. And we spend time in circles where we move the desks back and sit in a circle. And we have a lot of conversations and topics that are sensitive, whether it's around bullying or it's around just getting along with the diversity. We have used some specific programs, but we have found that tailoring our own program to meet the needs of our learners is best. We have a very diverse group at my school with a high amount of transgender and homosexual students. And we have been able to really kind of tailor some of those lessons to meet their needs so that bullying isn't going on, that they're accepted. And my school is phenomenal for that. The way kids get along, it kind of blows my mind sometimes at how accepting they are.
That's great. That thought leads into my next question, is about maintaining a safe environment for things like intolerance and bullying. Yeah. And how is it that you do that?
So we readily have a counselor available. We have a school psychologist available, but we just build such a good rapport with our students that they feel comfortable. And we can tell when somebody's having a rough time usually, or they come to us and they tell us, I'm not feeling comfortable right now. What can I do? And in that circle time that we have, they also feel comfortable saying things in front of their peers at times that it's just truly, they lift each other up.
Great. So it's really that the key is that relationship that you've built with your student.
Definitely. And that they've built between each other.
Mm-hmm. And now, how do you approach positive behaviors and then redirect a negative behavior?
That's the juggling act of a teacher. A lot of specific praise and telling a student exactly what they're doing right. That works wonders. I mean, sometimes I give specific praise and I'll direct it towards a student, and another student's like, hey, I'm doing that too, And then there's times where you give it to the whole class. And so you're shaping those behaviors. But what really helps is teaching your expectations in your classroom, having clear set rules and expectations for, even if it's how to get your pencil sharpened in the classroom. What are you going to do? How are you going to get the teacher's attention? How are you going to work in a small group with your peers? What kind of dynamics are going to need to take place in order for you to learn? So it's really pre-teaching what we want to see.
To avoid those negative, hopefully
yes.
Avoid the negative behaviors.
And of course, then praise and rewards for doing them.
Okay, great. Kind of going back, you talked about the diversity of your school. how do you use that culture and diversity in your teaching?
Well, I think I touched on it a little bit with by picking specific curriculum that meets the needs of them. We're not reading all stories about white children. It's not what we have in our classrooms. It's not realistic. We try to meet the needs in math too, by pulling from different areas and explaining to students that this can help you with this, to give it real life applications to their life. I mean, the diversity it's there, it's present. We meet it through curriculum choices, through our social emotional lessons, and then it becomes almost invisible. And I say that in a good way, because it becomes a non-problem, a non-issue.
Like, you're not trying too hard. It's just part of it. It's part of
Right.
it's part of what your school is about.
Yes. And we'll have, errors. Kids make errors. We have some bullying that will happen, but what we really try to do is, instead of punish, we try to meet the needs by sitting down with a group, whether it's a group of kids or a group of parents and kids or a group of kids and teachers, and talking it out and working it out and trying to meet the needs of everybody's, individual needs.
Sure. What methods at your school do they use for English learners?
So it's structured English immersion within their general education classroom. So in the lower grades, the teachers are providing it within their daily instruction. So that might mean that they are pulling a group of students that are English language learners within their literacy block or within the writing block, or however to meet their needs, because usually there's a higher level of vocabulary needs and extra comprehension questions and just extra explanations. In middle school, we have a separate class that is designed just for these students. So each day it stands as one of their periods or electives to give them that separate instruction that they need. And it's difficult. I mean, when you come at middle school as a beginning English learner, it's hard to jump into, a day full of English instruction. So it really gives them that smaller separate group where they can feel more comfortable to learn to begin to speak and ask questions.
Okay. What are some of your favorite technological tools that you use?
Well, we use computers all the time. And through distance learning, we used Zoom a lot. Favorites, though, I would say, gosh, just good editing software, whether it's through, Google Docs and Google applications are wonderful. I would say that we use those the most. Whether it's for Google Translate with a beginning English learner, or utilizing Google Documents to type and edit their papers. Students use Google Slides to do presentations for classes. And the Google Suite is phenomenal. And I've even used it a lot too for low-level writers to use Google Voice and speak into their computer to help them with their writing and answers.
Okay, great. And then how do you stay current with new learning trends?
Education is cyclical, and it's kind of funny because what has been popular at one time or another will fade out, and then something new will come in, and then you'll see it come back again. And that's kind of the wheel of what we do. Technology, I would say, is the area that we constantly have to keep training and learning more. Sometimes our students in middle school know more than us, and they can teach us in areas, which is amazing. But it's just keeping up with the times, keeping current with technology, attending workshops and trainings. That's been difficult though right now with the structure of our day, because we are stretched to the limit as far as not having a lot of times for meetings and trainings. Everything is online. We're not sitting down as a group of more than 8 at any time right now. So it's impacted it. But at the same time, good teachers know how to teach, and we just default back to what we know how to do.
Okay, what are some of your favorite activities that engage not only the student, but also the family out in your classroom? I know it's hard now because of COVID, but kind of like pre-COVID, how would you involve the family, not just the student, in your classroom?
Our school has a number of things that we do, from a back to school barbecue at a park, because we have a park that's right next to our school. We have an annual 5K Mission Hills run that our school puts on, and the kids and families all come and run, and community members too. We have a nursery that's right next to our school that partners with us for a lot of different things. And we do Halloween carnivals, or I should say fall carnivals. And our music program is fantastic. We put on a lot of performances, even online. We can do that. Gosh, I'm trying to think. Open houses, back to school nights. We usually have an annual art display where parents can come and see that. Our art teachers are phenomenal at pairing with the community. We have banners that are hung on light posts throughout the Mission Hills community that our students have painted and decorated with her. And then they have sponsors on the other side for local community businesses. We do so much, I can't even. Another thing we do, and I should have mentioned this about is social emotional learning, is my school is also a no place for hate. So we work with the Anti-Defamation League to partner with them for both activities for families and students within our school and within the community. We've done walks and things like that with them, and have gone to specific trainings with them. And they've come on campus and done trainings too with groups of students.
That sounds like the whole school is really involved in the community.
It is so involved. I mean, we're lucky, and talk about discrepancy between some of the more impoverished schools. My school is very lucky. We're not a Title I school. We have a foundation. We raise a lot of money. They really do quite well. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have poverty and homeless, but we have a lot of really students from very affluent families too, which do a lot of volunteering and contributing to our school.
Okay, do you see value in social activities outside of the classroom, like Boy Scouts or sports, in regards to your students, the value to your students?
Now, I've never taken specific data on this, but my personal opinion is that my students that are engaged in those types of activities perform better in school, and they have better social skills and better grit. They have a determination and the willpower to succeed that surpasses a lot of their peers. And why is that? Because I think, one, it's social, two, it's a discipline. It's getting them away from computers, phones, and technology. I think hands down, it's the right choice for kids.
Sure. Now, as a kind of a follow-up question to that, do you see an inequality gap when it comes to those social activities for a more maybe impoverished student that can't access that?
I do. I think for some of our families, it's very difficult because they may not have transportation to get their child to these things. Some of them cost money, and it's difficult to get their child to them because of that factor alone. Some of them work very long hours, and so by the end of the day, students either wait for their parents to get home after school, and so they don't get taken to those types of things, or they're with grandparents that don't drive. That, it impacts for sure. The district has really expanded this last year, though, by providing free activities throughout the community. I mean, we had phenomenal sporting activities, partners with the zoo, different YMCAs. I can't even think of them all. We had just so many that the district stepped up and really tried to broaden that for all of the families, so it would be on an equal playing field.
That's great. Okay, so a couple more questions. How do you demonstrate, caring and patience and fairness in respect to that diversity and the ability of each individual student and their knowledge level?
I think part of that is each individual student, treating them each as an individual and very different instead of just one generic group of students. It's getting to know them individually, building that rapport, having time for separate conversations besides just instruction, I think is really important. The kids notice when you're real with them, and it makes all the difference. And two, being consistent. If you have a consequence for something, maintaining that consequence. If you have a positive that you do for something, maintaining that so it's equitable. And I say that, but I also, with special ed students, sometimes I have to tweak that and tailor that to meet their individual needs, because what may be difficult for them is not difficult for most.
Sure. And then how do you self-assess as a teacher?
Oh my goodness, I do that daily. So I have the luxury of being a special education teacher. And so my main job now has become co-teaching. So co-teaching is sharing responsibilities of a classroom with a gen ed teacher. And we are constantly evaluating each other's lessons and giving each other tips within the class. But one of the things that really tells us exactly if we're doing the right thing is when we give a test, if many students fail it, then we failed as a teacher. It's not that our students didn't study or our students didn't know it. We take the blame and try to make the corrections and reteach, because if the majority of students are failing, we're doing something wrong.
Sure. Yeah, that wraps up the questions. Thank you so much for taking the time. And it sounds like your school has a great community and a great place for those kids.
It really does. But I feel blessed because I have taught at many different schools in my career, and I have taught in very rough neighborhoods, and I've taught in neighborhoods like the one I'm at currently. And I have to say, it all comes down to that community and teachers and the administrators and being a team. And that's what it's all about, is collaboration.
All right. Thank you so much.